Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our lecture series on scholarly writing for publication. And this is lecture 7. In lecture 7, we are dealing with the theory building in applied business disciplines. Specifically, in this lecture, ladies and gentlemen, I will present the definition of a theory. I know that I've already done that, but I'll try to remind you about this important aspect of a theory. Then I will go on and describe the differences between theories and models. If you recall, in our lecture 6 and lecture 5, I did not really draw a distinction between theories and models, but in this lecture I intend to do so. I'll go ahead and distinguish between types of theories, and then thereafter discuss theory frameworks, and go on and present general criteria for judging the quality of theories, ladies and gentlemen. The information in this lecture, ladies and gentlemen, is necessary and relevant for theory development research. If you recall, when we started with the scholarly writing for publication, I really took you through the understanding that when you are writing and documenting and communicating knowledge, then you must be aware of the fact that you will have conceptual papers, and then you will have also empirical papers, and then you will have dissertations and, of course, coursework papers that are usually given to students in various universities depending on the programs that they are pursuing. So today, we intend to go into that aspect of theory building, but in applied business disciplines, and specifically looking at those things which do matter. Just to take you back, when we attempted to define a theory, we said that it is not really very easy to define what a theory is because there's a lot of scattered information in literature, ladies and gentlemen, and people have defined a theory in different ways, ladies and gentlemen. For example, from time to time, you may have heard some people making statements like, everybody has a theory, right? Now, of course, that kind of statement really means, it really means nothing more than an armchair opinion. And this kind of theory can simply be taken to mean an idea or a hypothesis, perhaps based on some personal experience. So that is what people will certainly say from time to time. And ideas or hypotheses that have not been evaluated with rigor are referred to as theories by some individuals, but specifically speaking, you may not really be talking about a theory. So in that case, these ideas do not even have evidence to support them, and they lack verification from an alternative source. And of course, these do not really qualify to be called theories as such, ladies and gentlemen. So as you can see, when you talk about a theory in a more serious sense is built of ideas that have been translated into measurement criteria, ladies and gentlemen. And this is very important because these ideas must be examined in detail, and they must be tested using established and rigorous methods, ladies and gentlemen. So clearly, there are many definitions of a theory, as you can see. And in our case, we shall refer to the following definitions that we have taken from scholarly literature. These are definitions that are built around what we call applied disciplines. And business is an applied discipline with so many branches: accounting, finance, marketing, entrepreneurship, extra. So all those things are very important when we attempt to understand what a theory is. And in this case, ladies and gentlemen, a theory describes a specific realm of knowledge and explains how it works. And in applied disciplines, realms of study and practice that are fully understood through their use in the functioning world brings us to the close definition or closer definition of a theory or theories, ladies and gentlemen. So some additional theory definitions that have appeared in the literature as follows. For instance, from the American Heritage College Dictionary 1993, a theory is defined as a system of assumptions, principles, and rules of procedures devised to analyze, predict, or otherwise explain the nature or behavior. And of course, again from Dublin, 1978, a theory tries to make sense of the observable world by ordering the relationships among elements that constitute the theorist's focus of attention in the real world. So, again, those are definitions, but if you remember, last time I gave you a very simple definition of what a theory is, and I told you that a theory is simply a net that is cast out there in the wide environment to capture reality, ladies and gentlemen. So that is a theory, right? So anyway, again, an attempt to try and understand reality out there by constructing or coming up with models that explain that reality can also be considered to be theorizing. And of course, again, taken from Goya, Petrie 1990, theory is a coherent description, explanation and representation of observed or experienced phenomenon, ladies and gentlemen. So theory building is a recurring issue, and it's a process, not very easy, but again, very delicate, meaning that as scholars we must really be involved in that process of knowledge creation. So let's look at the difference between theories and models. And you know, in most cases, it's not very easy to draw a distinction between these two, but these two could actually be totally different, as you can see in our illustration that I'll be giving you very soon. So again, as you can see with the advancement in the tools of data analysis and also modeling, right, and multivariate testing, scholars increasingly examine a variety of independent variables and their effects on a wide range of outcomes, ladies and gentlemen. So these complex mathematical analytical tools which are available, which are at our disposal, like the structural equation modeling, the path analysis, hierarchical linear modeling, etc., make it easy to test several ideas without the difficult logical framework development which is required for true theory building. Now, of course, as you can see, research studies using mathematical analysis tools can make important contributions to theory development, but the tools themselves do not create theories, ladies and gentlemen. So you cannot say that these multivariate statistical testing tools actually do contribute to theory, they do create theories. No, they only contribute towards the process of theory development. So scholars advancing a specific method rarely go beyond modeling these sets of variables so that advanced statistical techniques can be applied. So in other words, as you can see, researchers are driven by techniques rather than questions seem to be a disappointing trend in the social sciences that result in models, not theories, ladies and gentlemen. So models are not the same as theories, right? Although again, taken into the strictest sense of what a theory is, then you'll be looking at those specific nets developed over time, and I mean, they are developed over time to capture that kind of reality that exists out there, and have been rigorously tested, and they have withstood the test of time. Of course, theories can be revised. You know that very well. Now, of course, as you can see, the practices that I have been talking about certainly give us the impetus to try and distinguish between models and theories. So theories and models are two different things. Theories almost always incorporate models, but models do not necessarily require theories or theoretical foundation. So the majority of scholars position models as a smaller component of theory. Again, if you go back to my lecture series in the philosophy of science, I hope you still remember Carnap's construction. I think that's when I talk about the construction of the world. Carnap's 1938, 1971. Works of Dewes and Vasky in 1970, and Kepler in 1964, plus a number of other scholars that you're aware of, they do position models as a smaller component of theories, and therefore they draw a distinction between models and theories. Now, that's why throughout this lecture, ladies and gentlemen, the terms theory and model are not used interchangeably, as I did last time. And of course, applied theories are taken as larger, complete representations of system activities. And therefore, models, these models are therefore smaller optional subsets of theories, as I've already indicated, and again, drawing from the inspiration of scholars who have lived before us, and of course, and what they have constructed and, of course, communicated in the literature. Now, why don't we look at the types of theories? Because we need to understand these theories so that we do justice to this subject. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, you are aware that we have various types of theories. We have what we call the grand theories. We have what we call mid-range theories. And we have what we call local theories. So there are three types, or three different types of theories, right? Now, of course, I must say at this material time, because theory builders in applied disciplines deal with a variety of different contexts, the specificity of their theories must vary as well. Let me just give you an example. Think of a camera lens and the zoom function, right? Now, the wide angle view gives the most comprehensive picture, but the details are usually fuzzy, ladies and gentlemen, right? But extreme close-ups can also be taken, but the scene is blurred or missing. We are using an example of a camera. Then there is everything in between there. So when we try to talk about the different types of theories, we are really talking about something that is similar to a camera, right? Where you have a zoom and you have to really focus in between there. So the concept of those mid-range and grand theories and local theories certainly refer to that. So let's examine these three types of theories more closely. So we shall start with the grand theories, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, as you can see, grand theories usually have the widest boundaries in applied disciplines and can be likened to the wide-angle camera lens, right? They are, right, as I've already told you, and applied, right, in a wide range of disciplines, but they usually have the widest boundaries, right, in applied disciplines, and of course, likened to the wide-angle camera lens. So these are usually aligned with the quantitative philosophical orientation and aim to establish generalizability of the findings. So the findings can be generalized with the matches. And these grand theories in applied disciplines, ladies and gentlemen, most closely emulate theories in the natural sciences because they are attempts at establishing laws or general principles that apply universally, ladies and gentlemen, to human activities. So as you can see, these grand theories certainly emulate the existing theories in the natural sciences, because at the end of the day, they are able to establish something that is close to a law, right, or what we call general principles, right. And of course, these are described put together so that they try to explain many aspects, and the boundaries are certainly wider in this case. So let me just give you an example, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take an example of the theory of human capital, and the premise that over our history, education is associated with increased income and a better quality of life, right? And really, this is an example of a grand theory developed by Becker and Harris. I hope you still remember that. Now, while this is perhaps not true in every single instance of education, data show the trend over time. Now, again, I'll give you an example of the theories of human behavior, like the stimulus response theory, and then McGregor's XY theory, developed in 1960. These are also additional examples of grand theories because they attempt to explain general human behavior or human systems behavior, regardless of location, regardless of class, regardless of education, and the other variables, ladies and gentlemen. So those are grand theories. They usually have broader boundaries, and they explain a number of things within that kind of setting. So let me talk about now mid-range theories, ladies and gentlemen. What are mid-range theories? Now, mid-range theories are more specific than grand theories, and they tend to be categorical. They tend to be categorical, explaining relationships that exist and predicting outcomes within a bounded domain, ladies and gentlemen. So mid-range theories apply to situations that do not attempt to establish universal laws, as in the case of the grand theories, but go beyond describing single instances of human activity, ladies and gentlemen. So in other words, there is some degree of generalizability or transferability of what is learned from the theory buildings. And of course, the example I would give in this case is the financial performance of Fortune 500 companies, research on training and development in the automotive industry, and research on the experience of women in leadership positions. All these might contribute to what we call mid-range theories. So these are theories common, and of course there are also many other theories in other disciplines like nursing that also qualify to be called mid-range theories, right? So theories used in nursing also exemplify mid-range theories because they are expected to explain and predict outcomes generally, but within the context of patient care or other nursing-related situations. So as you can see, documented studies of innovation and knowledge management at Xerox. Of course, you know that example of Donanka with knowledge management, generally speaking, and innovation, right, and Takeuchi. These are also good examples of potential mid-range theories because they illustrate how studies of innovation and knowledge management were conducted in one corporation and then distilled into practice that other corporations might consider adopting. So those are what we call mid-range theories, and very important for us in the scholarly world. So why don't we then talk about local theories? Because we've got the grand theories, mid-range, right, and of course local theories. Now local theories are very specific and so tightly coupled to a context that the context itself becomes part of the theory, right? So local theories are theories that are intended to apply in a small number of instances, sometimes on a single instance of human or human systems activities. And as you may have noticed from my description already, local theories are often based on the social construction, philosophical orientation, and they are not required to be generalizable to any other instance. I'll tell you, the use of a term from the quantitative philosophical orientation, local theories often outlier instances of human activity, ladies and gentlemen. So let's just take an example. For example, when outcomes deviate from grand or mid-range theories, right? And here, when I talk about mid-range theories, the outliers, right? Local theories often result from attempts to understand the unexpected results. So in other words, you have grand and mid-range theories, but when outcomes deviate from grand or mid-range theories, in other words, you have outliers at that material time, then local theories often tend to result from such attempts to understand the unexpected results. So, of course, as an example of a local theory would be an in-depth study of innovation practices at a particular company, right? Of course, in this case, if you are dealing with a company that has been very successful, right, and the company is competing very well, right, and if you really carry out an in-depth understanding, an in-depth study of innovation practices in that particular company, right, and again, assuming that other companies cannot really compete with this company, what you come up with will be context specific, right? And then you'll be talking about really a local theory. Now, the idea that frames local theorizing is that something unique is going on that is difficult or impossible to replicate, ladies and gentlemen. So that's why we end up with local theories. So research efforts, ladies and gentlemen, attempts to describe the uniqueness in ways that generate insight, in ways that these insights become very useful to the scholars, right? And of course, at the end of the day, aspects which are very critical and forming inputs to a particular study becomes very, very important. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this material time, why don't we look at the theory type connections, right? And I think this will take us again to a deeper understanding of a number of other aspects which are very critical. So the importance of the connection, ladies and gentlemen, between theory types and the theory boundaries cannot be overstated. For example, grand theories have wide boundaries and are expected to be generalizable. Local theories are by definition much smaller and apply in selected or specific areas of human activity and may be minimally transferable. And in between these two are mid-range theories which have the greatest degree of flexibility, ladies and gentlemen. So with the flexibility comes the responsibility for clarifying decisions in the theory building process and providing a logical connection among a theory's varying elements. And of course, these will be discussed later on. So, when we are dealing with the theory building, we must certainly try to understand a theory framework, right? And we must have a theory framework. Now, the theory framework, as articulated by Swanson 2007, actually Swanson 2007 established a theory framework that labeled specific, right, labeled six specific components of theories for framing the boundaries and defining applied disciplines, not just useful sub-theories within an applied discipline, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, these are very important, right? And I think I'm going to show you a diagram here so that we move together. So the diagram now is on the screen, and I'll call that figure 1 in this lecture 7. Now, as you can see, this diagram, ladies and gentlemen, there are 6 components, right? And these 6 components we are talking about here do present what we call a theory framework, right? And these are 6 components. From this diagram, you can see 6 components, right, of theories for framing the boundaries, because we need to understand the boundaries. You know, we've been talking about the mid-range, right, theories, right? We've talked about the grand theories, and we've talked about the local theories. And for you to say this is a local theory or grand theory, at that much of time you are defining the boundaries of the theory, right? So there are 6 components of theories for framing the boundaries, right? And these are the things that we are going to discuss, and these are the things which are presented in the diagram that you see there. Now, in the diagram, you can see what we call theory boundaries. The diagram, you can see contributing theory. In the diagram, you can see core theory. In the diagram, you can also see useful theory. In the diagram, you can also see novel theory. In the diagram, you can also see irrelevant theory, ladies and gentlemen, right? And this diagram, this figure is very important because we need to understand how these things really work in practice, right? So we shall be looking at these things one by one, as you can see, and we shall start with the boundary, because we need to understand what the boundary refers to in theory building and when we are actually classifying theories. The boundary of the theory of an applied discipline, ladies and gentlemen, is established by specifying its name. It's done by specifying, for instance, the name of the theory, providing the definitions of that particular theory, then providing the purpose along with assumptions or belief, and of course later on conceptually frame the theory and practice of the discipline. So when we talk about the boundary, right, there are a number of things that we must really pay attention to, ladies and gentlemen. A boundary of the theory of an applied discipline, right? And of course, is established usually by looking at the name. So we specify the name by providing definitions. Definitions are very important. We also provide the purpose, right, along with the assumptions or beliefs of that theory. And then, of course, we conceptually frame the theory and practice of that discipline. So that's what we call boundary. The second aspect, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call the contributing theory, right? Of course, as you can see, selected theories, right, that fundamentally address the definition, the purpose, and assumptions undergirding an applied discipline. So when we talk about a contributing theory or contributing theories, then we are looking at selected theories, right? Those selected theories that fundamentally address the definition. Those selected theories that fundamentally address the purpose. Those selected theories that fundamentally, right, address the assumptions undergirding an applied discipline, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what we call contributing theories. Let's go to another third component, which we call the core theory. Core theory. Now, when we start talking about the core theory, right, we are talking about the intersection, right? And you can see that in the diagram here. You've got 3 circles, 3 Venn diagrams, right? And in between there, right, you see that point of intersection. That point of intersection has the word core, and that's what we call a core theory. So the intersection and integration of the contributing theories that operationalize the definition, that operationalize the purpose, that operationalize the assumptions of an applied discipline can be referred to as core theories or core theory. Now, again, when you look at the diagram here, we've got what we call the useful theory. What is that useful theory? You will see again when you look at the 3 Venn diagrams, right? If you are to call them actually set A, set B, set C, at the end of this you see intersections at that material time. So we talk about a useful theory, right, by looking at a theorem outside the core theory of an applied discipline within the intersection of 2 contributing theories that has utility in explaining an important realm of practice within the discipline. And that's why we have that as a useful theory. Now, the other one is novel theory. Again, as you can see from the diagram, novel theory, right, everywhere. In fact, even outside the 3 Venn diagrams, you have novel theories, but even within the 2 sets where you don't have any intersection, you've got novel, but even where you have intersections, of course with an exception of the core, right, again, which is an intersection of the 3 or all of them, right, here we are talking about novel, right. Now, of course, here when we talk about novel theory, we are talking about the theory of a narrow phenomenon that is related to an aspect of the applied discipline under consideration. And this could logically provide an unusual explanation of how the phenomenon works, right? So again, as you can see, we move to another category, and if you're looking at our Venn diagram, again you see what we call irrelevant theory. And an irrelevant theory is any theory that falls outside the theory boundary, outside contributing theories, outside the core theory, and outside the useful theory of the applied discipline under consideration, with no compelling evidence of its usefulness or logic supporting its potential for a novel contribution, ladies and gentlemen. So as you can see, that is the diagram, and the diagram has all of those things specified and spelled out, and we call that theory framework for applied disciplines, where you have boundaries, you've got contributing, you've got core, you've got useful, you've got novel and irrelevant components, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, that is taken from Swanson, 2007. Now, as you can see, the context of these theory components is relevant to applied disciplines. And this means that a theory contribution in an applied discipline could be judged as a core theory, it could be judged as a contributing theory, or it could be judged as any other theory, novel or useful, or whatever it is, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this lecture, as I said earlier on, is less concerned with the classifying the utility of theories, and instead is focused on building theories. So our concern is actually theory building. And but certainly suffice to say, it is still useful to think about the potential role of a theory in applied discipline before taking on the theory building effort. For example, a theory of scenario planning might be considered a contributing theory in the applied discipline of strategic management, ladies and gentlemen. Alternatively, a theory of motivation might be considered a core theory in the discipline of organizational behavior. And of course, that is very important. And once we do that, so honing the 6 theory framework components is an iterative process, as you can see. So developing and testing a single component in context of the others will advance a theory as it continues to evolve. So again, this is very important. Iterations of component refinement should have an eye towards understanding and harmonizing all the 6 components that we have just described, that are still presented in the Venn diagram as you see it here on the screen. So boundary and irrelevant components, and these are 2 critical components of the theory framework for applied disciplines, and these actually include the boundary of the theory component and the irrelevant theory component. And these components are particularly important when judging existing theories and their roles in applied disciplines. So as applied disciplines grow and change over time, they continue to be messy and diverse, and that's why we need to be involved in the theory building exercise. And the ability to classify theories can be very useful, ladies and gentlemen, in the struggles to debate and define, core purposes and theories of an applied discipline. So when building theories, these components are even more important, ladies and gentlemen. Now, most scholars are drawn towards building novel theories to distinguish their ideas as unique or different. And often the drive for uniqueness, ladies and gentlemen, results in irrelevant theories. By definition, irrelevant theories make no useful contribution to their applied discipline. And few disciplines and scholars are savvy enough to make judgments about such fringe theories, and are usually left to debates and time to sort them out or sort themselves out, as you can see. So why don't we then look at the general criteria for assessing theories? Now, criteria for assessing theories are important because they provide a means by which to judge the utility or even the potential utility of a theory. So it's important for us to assess these theories and get to know exactly what they are, even before using them, before applying them to the studies that we undertake in applied research or disciplines. So as you can see, some authors have really given us some kind of models and guidelines, and they've even proposed a specific set of criteria based on philosophical orientation. So never leave out the philosophy of science, because it guides almost every decision we do in knowledge creation. And it is important to establish a general set of criteria that can be applied to any theory regardless of philosophical orientation. So theories, again, still must be able to do what they are defined to do. Theories must be able to demonstrate that they actually they stand the test of time, right? So they must be able to do what they are defined to do, and a set of criteria is intended to give researchers a means by which to judge utility. So I'm going to take you through the criteria very soon, and this criteria is important, and it's given by Patterson 1993, and it makes us really understand, makes us evaluate, it makes us assess the existing theories and even the new theories, and of course the potential utility of the theories and the utility of the existing theories, ladies and gentlemen. So one of these characteristics, or yardsticks, is what we call importance, right? And a theory should not be limited to a few situations, right? So rather, a theory should have relevance to real world situations, right? So I know that most individuals make statements, especially when they want to describe things that don't work. They will make statements like, this is a theory, it is theoretical, right? And such descriptions and such statements are not really properly framed, and they do not represent what scholars do over time. It's more or less like an abuse of what scholars are doing. So we're saying once a theory has been developed, right, this theory should not be limited to a few situations. Rather, it should have relevance to real world situations. So therefore, importance becomes an important yardstick for assessing a theory. Importance may be difficult, ladies and gentlemen, to evaluate. Maybe the only real implication of importance is acceptance by professionals, or recognition and persistence in the literature, right? So importance is very important, it's a yardstick, but very difficult to evaluate, but not really impossible. We might say difficult, but we can't say it is impossible to achieve, right? So let's go to a second criteria that we use. The second criteria is called preciseness and clarity, right? So a theory should be understandable. A theory should be internally consistent. A theory should be free of ambiguities, ladies and gentlemen. And that is preciseness and clarity. Clarity may be tested by the ease of relating the theory to data or to practice, or the ease of developing hypothesis or making predictions from it, and specifying methods of testing those particular hypotheses. So that is the second component. We go to the third component, ladies and gentlemen, which is parsimony and simplicity, right? Now, parsimony has long been considered an important criterion for theory. This means that the theory, ladies and gentlemen, has a minimum of complexity and few assumptions. Parsimony carried to an extreme, however, may lead to oversimplification of the theory. So, but parsimony is important only after the criteria of comprehensiveness and verifiability have been determined, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go to another criteria, which is comprehensiveness. A theory must be comprehensive. A theory should be complete, right? It must cover an area of interest, including all data in the field, right? And of course, the area of interest, however, can be restricted to one general area, right, ladies and gentlemen? So that is an indicator of assessing the utility of a theory, or the potential utility of a theory. Then the other component, ladies and gentlemen, that we can use, or criteria, is what we call operational ability, right? That is operationality of the theory, right? And when we talk about operationality of a theory, we mean that a theory, right, a theory should be capable of being reduced to procedures for testing its propositions or predictions. And its concepts must be precise, right? Must be precise enough to be measurable, right? And this is very important. So theoretical concepts should first be identified and defined, and then a method of measurement chosen, or developed. And not all concepts in a theory must be operational, ladies and gentlemen, but it's important that operationality be used as a criteria for evaluating the utility of a theory. And some concepts may be used to indicate relationships and organization among other concepts as we know it. Right, so the other aspect is what we call empirical validity or verifiability. We must be able to verify the theory. We must be able to validate the theory empirically. So as you can see, as I've already said, the preceding criteria are rational in nature and do not directly relate to the correctness or validity of a theory. Eventually, however, a theory must be supported by experience or experiments, right, that confirm it. In other words, we're saying, in addition to consistency with or ability to account for what is already known, a theory must generate new knowledge. So, but we also know that a theory that is disconfirmed by an experiment may lead indirectly to new knowledge by stimulating the development of a better theory, ladies and gentlemen. Another criteria that you can use to evaluate or assess the utility of a theory is fruitfulness. How fruitful is the theory? The capacity of a theory to lead to prediction that can be tested. Right, the capacity of a theory to lead to the development of new knowledge. The capacity of the theory, ladies and gentlemen, right, to lead to predictions, right, that can be tested, ladies and gentlemen. So a theory can be fruitful even if it is not capable of leading to specific predictions, although, again, it may provoke thinking and the development of new ideas or theories, ladies and gentlemen. So another aspect is what we call practicability or practicality. So the final criteria for a good theory, which is seldom mentioned, right, is whether the theory is useful to practitioners, right, in organizing their thinking and practice, and by providing an organizing framework for practice. So, ladies and gentlemen, a theory allows the practitioner to move beyond the empirical level of try and error applications of techniques to the rational application of principles. So practitioners too often think of theory as something that is irrelevant to what they do, unrelated to practice or real world, ladies and gentlemen. So that is the kind of thinking that individuals may have about what a theory is, ladies and gentlemen. So again, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to sum up the lecture, and the other aspects will be covered in our next lecture, ladies and gentlemen, of theory building. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this lecture and theory building in applied business disciplines, we have specifically dealt with the definition of a theory, or actually definitions of a theory. But a theory, as you can see, well, you're actually free to choose your own definition from these ones. We have also described the differences between theories and models, whereas in the previous lectures, for simplicity purposes, we treated models and theories as more or less the same. We have attempted to draw a distinction between models and theories. We have also distinguished between the types of theories, right? And of course, we've looked at the grand theories, if you remember. We've looked at mid-range theories, ladies and gentlemen, and we have looked at local theories, and of course in terms of boundaries and so forth. We have also attempted to discuss theory frameworks, and in the end have presented general criteria for judging the quality of theories. I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in this lecture. And I want to really thank you for being attentive. I can only say stay well, stay safe. We meet next time in lecture 8. Have a nice time. Bye.